Good to go.
On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, breaking the stigma. Is bankruptcy really that bad? So, welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Shawn Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and I am joined remotely today by your financial coach, George Curbello. How you doing, George?
I'm okay. I am feeling a little bit, I don't want to say under the weather. I feel like I'm just under the age group that it feels like, everything you wake up and all of a sudden like this hurts and what's that pain and why do I have gas? So it's just yeah, it's just a lot of TMI there, but that's where we're at right now with life, my friend.
I look forward to my monthly chiropractic visits. I look forward to getting my back crunched every month, and even when I do. So I actually went yesterday to the chiropractor and I got cracked and crunched and it felt great. And then I woke up this morning and everything was sore again.
Jeez.
I'm like, I
Well, I
can't.
mean, it's could be the bed, right? They always say, "Oh, it could be the bed, the pillow, it could be the," but it's yeah. The one of the things I've noticed is like the more stretching I do, I feel like it does help, but it also feels like it doesn't. So it's like ouchies. But yeah, it's been one of those things that I've been kind of working through. But my bigger concern is kind of like just internal pains. Like I feel like is that a muscle or is that an appendix? I don't know, but we'll have to see.
Do I have heartburn or am I having a heart attack?
Yeah.
Although, so I learned this from the chiropractor in my networking group is that if you get your chiropractor to write you a note, I don't think they can charge you sales tax on buying a new mattress.
Really?
Yeah, now I don't know if that applies all across the country or if that's just in the state of Florida or whatever, but yeah, it's my understanding that if you get your chiropractor to write you a note and you go buy a new mattress, they do not have to charge you. That's an exemption to collecting and filing sales tax. So
Interesting.
if
Okay, well
you're
there you go.
in the
Something
market,
you always
yeah,
learn something from this show. Look at that.
there you go. So if you're in the market for a new mattress, talk to your chiropractor first and see if he or
See
she
if that's
knows about
eligible.
that. And so as this episode comes out, we will be nearly halfway through the year.
Amazing.
I
Well, I
can't.
mean, that's amazing. But yes, time flies when you're having fun. That's what my mom used to say. This is a good thing. I would say the thing that that I'm very happy about. This is kind of graduation season. It's anniversaries, wedding season. It's the official kickoff to, it'll be Memorial Day. We talk about Memorial Day. If it's the official kickoff of summertime, right? Getting into the summer months. Kids are either out of school or about to get out of school. So there's a lot happening around this time, and all of it is good. I mean, it's always hot in Florida, but it gets hotter. So very excited about that too. So, but yeah, I'm excited because had a great we have a great anniversary and everybody's happy. So 25 years. Again, thank you to my lovely wife on that for 25 and hopefully 25 more. And yeah, this it's one of those things. It's a good time of year to really just enjoy and get ready for some summer months.
Yep, that's what we're doing. So school is over the end of May, and then we start summer camps. And then for me, June was always really bad. Not really bad, but really expensive because my younger son's birthday is in June. My wife's birthday was in June.
Yeah,
My dad's birthday was in June. Great grandma's birthday was in June. So there were a lot of June things going on, the start of summer camp, and we
sure.
haven't even, we should probably dedicate an episode to that in terms of just all the different $200 for this weekly camp
Yeah.
and 250 for that one and 125 for this one and 300 for that one. So June tends to be an expensive month around the Yesner household.
I think it's an expensive month for most people going into because summer months means kids are home, so that means they're eating more, or they could be needing to have activities to keep them busy and keep them out of trouble. But and again, of course, we have to continue to work, so
Right.
that's an option for it. So yeah, there's a lot of planning. Let's put it like this: if we haven't planned for the summer months, it's probably a stressful month to start with in June because we're like, how are we going to manage all of these expenses with all of the other expenses that seem to be, propping up that we're seeing out there in the real world?
I had a business coach tell me once, failing to plan is planning to fail.
Absolutely. That's it.
So
That's a the business coach. That's a project manager. That's in everybody. Is
there
if
you
you if
go.
you don't plan, you might as well plan to fail. So that's a good motivational tip here on a nice morning time for the the listeners.
So what I thought about we could talk about today, this
Hmm.
is a show that I started to support the law firm that handles a
Absolutely.
lot of bankruptcy cases. We've done a lot of bankruptcy topics, but we haven't done one lately.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We got to give some love to the Yesner Law part of the podcast for sure. So, but I have to say, I'll give you a story, my friend, because what brought up the conversation. I'm in a mastermind group with a ton of coaches, and I'm listening to we always have these kind of here's a scenario. Let's talk. So, a couple is have has a good income. I think making over 100,000 in a year but the debts that they have, they're managing, it's like over 300,000 in debts. Now again, combination of loans, combination of student loans, maybe there's several cars, whatever it might be. But let's just say that the debts are a little bit over their head, right? They're drowning to try to figure out certain things. And of course, as coaches, we always like what options? What are some of the things that they are proposing? What are some of the things that we would propose? And right away, for me, some of the coaches seem to say bankruptcy bad. That's a terrible thing to do. What do you mean? That's not. We just got to put the bootstraps on, and we got to pay the debts as quickly as we can. Which sounds familiar if you don't see where I'm going with some of this. And for me, I was just like, well, let's again, let's do the numbers. Let's do like we can't rule out bankruptcy as an option. It should be an option that should be discussed. And everybody looked at me a little funny, like, what is wrong? What is wrong with you, Mister? What is wrong with you? I'm just saying. I'm like, I know a guy. So for me, I think it's still going to be a stigma, right? People are still going to think bankruptcy is a failure. They're going to think like this is terrible. This is a bad option. What is wrong with you? Why are we even talking here?
I actually had a woman say to me a few days ago, I don't want to file bankruptcy because that'll mean I'm a deadbeat. And typically
I mean, but that's learned.
right. And it's not. And what I typically tell those types of people is, I've got an office, I've got a practice filled with people that find themselves in the same scenario. Look, bankruptcy is allowed by the US Constitution.
Right.
So it's everyone deserves a second bite at the apple. Bad
Right.
stuff happens to good people, and that's
Yeah.
what bankruptcy's for. But at the end of the day, I also recognize bankruptcy's not the same round peg that I'm trying to hammer into every square hole.
Exactly.
It,
Right.
it is an option of last resort in my mind. And I've said this before on the show many times. I'll deal with elderly clients that are on a fixed income, Social Security, which is exempt from garnishment, or they're getting an annuity payment, or they're getting a 401k distribution. That's all exempt.
Hmm.
Maybe they own a home. Maybe they own a home with a reverse mortgage. Maybe they own a home with a regular mortgage. None of their stuff can be taken. And in a scenario like that, bankruptcy may not be such a good idea. Or let me say in another way, bankruptcy may not be necessary.
Right.
But bankruptcy could be an option if they're worried about being hounded by the debt collectors, being
Right.
hounded by lawsuits, having to answer garnishment motions that would never go anywhere, but you still got to put in the time and answer the motion. I mean, for the person you were talking about, for the person you were kicking around in the mastermind,
Yeah.
sometimes the amount of debt isn't necessarily determinative of whether the person needs to file bankruptcy or not. I mean, you could have $300,000 in debt and make $3 million a year, and
Correct.
who cares? But if you have $300,000 in debt and you're making $200,000 a year, now maybe bankruptcy is an option. Or
So
$300,000 a year, you're making $400,000 a year. Maybe bankruptcy is still an option.
and that's where so me obviously I'm gonna say like if the debts outweigh what you're bringing in, right? So if the budget each month is negative, consistently because of the amount of debt that's there, I'm assuming let's at least have a conversation. I'm not saying right away you qualify for bankruptcy, right? I think it's just it should be an option to be discussed, right? I agree, right? If you can, if you're making more but the debts are under control, it's something that like again, is it the last resort kind of thing? Maybe that's the different scenarios that you have specific to kind of looking into that. But I, it's funny you brought something up. I mean, I think with now the rising costs and credit cards being maxed out, all of the things that are happening out there, some of the choices we're making, around 90 days, same as cash, and all of these things that seem to be hurting some Americans today. It's one of those like, I mean, one of the things I mean, people don't just wake up and go, "Oh, bankruptcy, let's go,
Right.
let's go." Like this is it's.
Yay! I get to file bankruptcy today.
Let's do this. I'm gonna go have some coffee, and we're gonna just go and go to the. I understand. That I mean that's got to be. We kind of joke at it, but no one does that. No one. It's kind of you fall into that situation. But I just ran through a few scenarios, and it kind of like each one you would probably say it depends, right? It may be that's an option, but I think people are still in this process of like, well, what is bankruptcy? Like again, I get it. What is bankruptcy itself? We see, we hear chapter 7, chapter 13, chapters, all of these, I've been reading a good book, that kind of thing. There's so many chapters. But like again, what does that mean when we talk bankruptcy altogether?
I had a consult yesterday with a client, as a matter of fact, and got a very common question, but it was, what's the difference between bankruptcy and just settling the debt? When is one better
Ooh,
than the other?
right,
And typically, my response to that is, if you have a war chest of cash saved up, bankruptcy is a bad idea because all that money potentially is going to be taken by the trustee if you don't have an exemption to protect that money. And in most cases, you don't. There's no
right,
specific exemption to protect cash in the bank. It's if you have enough under the wild card exemption or whatever. So if you have a war chest of cash saved up, settlement might be a better option.
right,
If you can afford the payments, settlement might be a better option. But the danger that I see with people that do debt settlement cases is, I call it death by a thousand cuts. So it's
right,
$50 to this creditor, $20 to that creditor, $100 to this creditor, $200 to that creditor, 125 to this creditor, 75 to that creditor. If you add up all those little settlements to all the creditors and you come out with, let's say, $1,000 a month, but you could file a bankruptcy at $600 a month under a Chapter 13 payment plan in
yeah.
bankruptcy, that's going to be your better option. But if you can afford all these little payments, or you only have one or two creditors that you have to negotiate with, then yeah, settling out the debt might be the better option.
Wow. So, and I think that's where, people, and that's where I look at it, right? If you have a ton of debt, right? But is if you're still managing it, that's still, that's for me, like most of us think of it as like I'm drowning, right? But I can still, it sucks, but I can still pay all the bills.
Right,
Like where are we from that standpoint, right? There's a different approach to how to manage, the debt, right? Maybe a debt snowball and you do all the, get a restructure, maybe gazelle intensity, trademark, but it is the way to go, right? But once again, you're one event from being a crisis, from being in crisis from that
right.
standpoint.
Well,
And, and I and I think that's what that's what people are kind of they're threading that line right now with the way the economy is today.
and that's what I've said. Bankruptcy is when you can't afford to repay the debt in a reasonable period of time.
Hmm.
So if you can afford to repay your debt within a year, bankruptcy is a bad option. If it's going to take you 50 years, bankruptcy could be a great option. It really does depend on the circumstances, and we have a lot of good bankruptcy attorneys here in Tampa,
Right.
and I think most of us or all of us would say that, hey, bankruptcy is a bad idea for you because, or
Hmm.
bankruptcy is a great idea for you because. But one of the things that I see my clients get in trouble with is waiting too long to file.
Right.
because I like to be an optimist. And so if you qualify for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy today, a liquidation bankruptcy today, but you get a job a month from now and that job pays you $100,000 a year, well, then you might be a bad. You could file it today, get rid of all your debt, as long as you don't have that job offer when we file, because we would have to
Right.
report that to the trustee.
Yep.
But if you were to file today and then you were to go out tomorrow and get a job paying you 100 grand, great. Your debt would be discharged. You start your 100. Now again, I think no one files today and gets a job offer of 100 grand tomorrow.
Yeah.
Probably something that's in the
If
works.
you're lucky, that's great. But yes,
Right.
that's the unlikely scenario. Not
Right.
that it won't happen, but yeah.
But my point is, I've had people that were eligible to file today, and then they become ineligible to file a Chapter 7, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, because. Now, I've actually interestingly gone the other way. So I had a client once in Florida. If you do not own your homestead, you get a $5,000 exemption to protect anything:
Hmm.
furniture, clothes, jewelry, businesses you own, money in the bank, all that kind of stuff. You get up to $5,000 of an exemption. Well, I was working with a client once, and they had about $5,500 in the bank. Well, we could protect 5,000 of that. We'd still have $500 that we left unprotected. But if we use the $5,000 exemption to protect the cash, we have no more exemption to protect furniture, clothes, jewelry,
Right.
collectibles, all this other stuff. So what I had to tell the client to do was pay down or pay your monthly utilities like you normally would. Don't prepay anything. The example that I use, my car insurance renews every 6 months, but I pay it monthly. Now, I know there are people that pay their car insurance
Yeah.
6 months at a chunk.
Yeah.
I choose to pay it monthly. If I choose to pay it monthly, and that's my history, and I want to bleed down the money in my bank account, I should not throw 6 months of payments at my insurance company. That's going to
Right.
draw a red flag with the bankruptcy court.
Gotcha.
But if I wait till next week to file, and by next week, my insurance check is cleared, I've paid another month's worth of, or another week's worth of groceries, I've paid the electric bill, I've paid the
Hmm.
water bill, I've paid for doctor visits, I've paid my mortgage payment, my rent payment, whatever. And I've, based on paying my regular monthly expenses, the cash reduces down to some, let's say 2,000.
Yeah.
Well, now I pull the trigger on a bankruptcy, I can protect 2,000 of cash, and I have $3,000 left to protect my other assets.
Gotcha.
So you can time a bankruptcy one way or the other, depending on what the circumstances are. You just can't, again, I can pay my mortgage payment. I can't pay 6 months of mortgage payments.
Right.
If my HOA is due quarterly, my homeowner association's due quarterly, and we're looking at filing in the quarter where the payment is due, make the payment, bleed down the cash a little bit, and then file. But if HOA payments are paid quarterly or are paid monthly, I can't pay a quarter of a head to reduce my
Gotcha.
money and then file. So my point is, we can play with the timing a little bit, either before or after. One other issue that we bump into a lot in terms of timing: people that get bonuses. When we're talking about the means test, which is the test we use to determine if someone qualifies for the liquidation Chapter 7 or the Chapter 13,
Yeah.
it's based on your last 6 months of income. So anytime we file January, February, March, April, May, anytime we file in that time frame, I've got to be aware of Christmas bonuses, because
True.
Christmas bonuses might artificially inflate someone's income. And so there's been plenty of times where I've said, well, wait a minute, if we wait until July to file, I don't have to worry about reporting that Christmas bonus you received as part of your means test. And we have to report it. It's going to be in the tax returns. It's going to be in the W-2s. The trustee's going to know about it. But at least in terms of the means test, it wouldn't come into play in the means test because it was more than 6 months ago. So again, timing can play a major factor in when or whether we file at all.
Okay. So I mean, and some are there other things you know that again I kind of you kind of answered a lot of them too. You know, minimum payments. You know, debt to you know the debts you're using debt to survive. Is that kind of another time when you're thinking people like would push you go like, hey, I need to talk to Shawn because you know we're using credit cards to buy food, even though we hear a lot of again in the news the way the news is kind of portraying things, people are using credit cards today just to eat, just to kind of skate by. But is that not the only indicator that can kind of push you to kind of like let's have this discussion? Um, Obviously lawsuits, right? Obviously if the
Yeah.
collectors are coming by, if, you're getting a lot of those calls. That's probably another thing as well. But are there other things, other ways or things to think about?
Well, yeah, I mean the first thing you brought up in terms of using credit cards to buy groceries, using credit cards to survive, that is definitely a sign that bankruptcy might be needed. The other thing that comes into play when someone's charging a lot on their credit cards, any charges somebody makes within 90 days of filing potentially is not dischargeable if the money was used for what the bankruptcy code calls a luxury item. So
Gotcha.
the example that I give to clients, you go to Target, you buy $100 worth of groceries,
Mm-hmm.
you buy $20 worth of prescriptions, and you buy a new outfit for $50. So you charge $170. The $100 you charge for groceries is dischargeable because groceries are a
Yeah.
necessity. They are not a
Yep.
luxury.
Sure.
The $20 you charge on the prescription, again, necessity, not a luxury. Now, the money you charge for the $50 new outfit might be luxury.
My right.
You might not. Now, I guess if the circumstances were such that, I'm going on a job interview and I needed a new outfit for the job interview, maybe we can get away with arguing
Sure.
necessity. But typically, clothing is a luxury. And so, what would happen in that kind of a scenario is the $100 for groceries would be dischargeable, the
Mm-hmm.
$20 for prescriptions would be dischargeable, and then you might have to pay the credit card company back the $50 you spent on the new outfit. But again, that's only if you charge within the 90 days prior to filing. So if filing is going to be an option for you, definitely keep in touch with your bankruptcy attorney to make sure that he or she can walk you through some of these issues. But yeah, having a bunch of credit card debt is definitely a red flag for bankruptcy. Some other things that you should avoid doing. Definitely don't pay back friends or family members money that you owe
Yeah.
them.
Okay. I
That
think
that's
we've
an that's an insider payment. The bankruptcy court will say, "Why are you paying back your brother when you didn't
right.
pay back, Visa?" And we all understand why. You know,
Yeah, there's an
it,
emotional side to that
right.
payment. I get that.
There's never any judgment by you, by me. There's
Yeah.
never any judgment here. But we all know that, why you would want to pay your brother back first, but don't do it because that could cause a kind of a nasty situation for your brother when the bankruptcy trustee sues your brother to get back the money that you paid him instead of paying your creditors back. So um, don't do that. Don't move stuff around. So
Ooh. Okay.
I have a client who's kind of in a really tough spot. He, a family member, not a friend of the family, like a long time, like someone that they've known since childhood, approached the family and said, "Hey, I'm having trouble with this house." And so the family agreed to put the house in an LLC. And I forget the exact details of the deal, but it's
Sure.
that the house is in the LLC, and when this person gets back on their feet, they're going to deed the house back to him. They're renting it out for him right now, and
Okay.
whatever the deal is. Well, my client is one of the people that is the owner of the LLC that owns the house. That's a major asset in a bankruptcy case because now the trustee owns that interest in the LLC. The trustee potentially can force the sale of the house. And my client said, "Well, I'm just going to move it to another family member." You can't do that.
Yeah, that wouldn't that be there's got to be a time period, right? You can't
Yeah.
just be like, here's my sister. Hey, they can manage it now.
Well, here's the thing. The preference period, so the look back period, the period of time the
Right.
trustee can look and say, when was stuff moved around for friends and family members is 1 year.
Oh
So
wow.
if you transfer an asset within 1 year, the trust to a friend or family member, to an insider, the
Hmm.
trustee can go back and unwind that transaction. But the question the trustee is going to ask at the meeting of creditors, have you given away, transferred, or sold any asset worth $500 or more in the last 2 years? Now, again,
Mm.
some have said $600 or more, some have said within the last 3 years,
Sure,
but
sure.
that's the basic question that gets asked. So if I convey an asset to my sister because I don't want to own that asset at the time I file bankruptcy, and then I wait a year and then I file bankruptcy, well, technically, I might not have to report it because we're outside of that one
Yeah,
year period. But when the trustee says, have you given away, transferred, or sold anything worth $500
in
or
two
more in the
years.
last 2 years? And my client has to say yes. Now the trustee knows about that transfer and now it's potentially an issue.
Yeah, you don't
So,
want to lie in those instances, I'm
no.
assuming.
Well, lying to the bankruptcy court, the FBI knocks on the door and says, "Why are
Yeah,
you lying to a federal court?" So you want to be
gotcha.
careful about moving stuff around. Don't transfer car titles, don't transfer properties, or if you do, be prepared to wait at least a year, maybe more, before you're
Maybe
able to
more.
file your bankruptcy.
Right. No, and again, my uncle told me that that's all I need to do, right? Is just move assets around. I can do all of these kind of things, and then I can apply and blah blah blah. Yeah, you get a lot of that advice, Sean. You
That
think?
was what episode was that?
Yeah,
That
there was
was
a few.
episode 513, financial advice your rich uncle should not be giving you.
Well, my uncle's not rich, so I think that's just my uncle in this instance. But yes.
So
But
no,
yeah, it's amazing how, a lot of things to keep in mind, right? This is where once again people don't just wake up and be like bankruptcy, let's go. It's, there's certain things that people need to think about, right? And I think what we want to try and get people past is this, the shame, the judgment, the the I let myself down. Those are going to be emotions that people are going to go through when it comes to, really the situation. Um, but then also you're going to get a lot of advice and bad advice, maybe good advice if you're lucky, from people who are just not, they're not trained. They're not in that position. So I think this is where, I think you're providing a lot of information and really a lot of scenarios for people to start thinking about like, okay, if bankruptcy is going to be an option, here's some of again, stop what you're doing and just have the conversation. Let's not implement any of the advice that people, that you may hear on TikTok or just from family members when it comes
well,
to this.
and I love AI. I use
Oh,
AI.
yep.
I actually, the week after this episode comes out, my son is having his 12th birthday party and he wants to have it at Top Golf, which
Yes.
I would assume I think Top Golf is nationwide, but it's basically they rent out these bays that will fit up to six golfers, and it's basically like a three-story driving range. So you got people on the bottom floor, the middle
Yep.
floor, the top floor, and then out in the grassy area, they've got targets and they have different video games, and they've got the balls are special balls. They're not balls
Right.
you could take out to a golf course. They're balls that the system can track, and you play these different games, and it's a really fun time. And so that's what we're doing the week after this episode comes out. But one of the things about it is that you gotta you gotta plan for it, you gotta figure it out, you gotta schedule it. And so it's one of these things that it's not I'm trying to figure out how best to make the point here in terms of what people think versus what they know versus what they do
Right.
versus all the other things that go into you got to plan for it, you got to prepare for it. Bankruptcy is no different.
Right. And I think it's what's funny is we still kind of, you know, there's still stigma around going through the process. There's stigma about like, is it the right move? Is this not, is it the wrong move? How is this going to impact me? How is it going to look? What is life going to look like after bankruptcy? I mean, that's the other thing that people, are people going to judge me am I never going to have credit again? Or, and again, it's still funny, right? When you're thinking about like, the situation of credit has put me maybe in this situation, right? But then people are still thinking about like, but what can I use? How can I not use credit? Or they're worried about being able to not have credit after the fact. And I think
Yes.
that's some of the, again, that's the mindset kind of things that we got to be careful of like, what put you in this situation? Could it put you back in this situation in a few years?
Yeah, and that's I answer a lot of those questions as well. Life after bankruptcy. I'm not necessarily concerned about a credit score because
Yeah.
credit will recover. And again,
Yeah.
my job is to get rid of your liability.
Right.
There's no way to get rid of your liability and maintain your credit. It's just not possible. The only
Hmm.
way to maintain your credit and get out of debt is to pay off your debt in
Yeah.
full. That's the only way to do it. But your credit score will recover. So I've had friends or clients, not friends, clients who have filed bankruptcy and within days or weeks of having their
Yeah.
bankruptcy discharged, they've gotten credit card offers because I actually wrote a blog on the Yes or Law website about the
Hmm.
different time periods between filing. So if you file a Chapter 7, you got to wait 8 years before you file another Chapter 7. If you file a Chapter 13, you got to wait 2 years before filing another one. And
Right.
this is after a successful discharge
Yeah.
completion of the case. And
Sure.
then if there's a different time period, if you're going from 7 to 13 or 13 to 7 or whatever. So the credit card companies know they've got you for 8 years if you
At
filed a
least.
Chapter 7. So they'll
Sure.
give you credit right away. I've had people within a year or two of filing bankruptcy buy new cars. I've had people within 2 or 3 years of filing a bankruptcy buy new houses. So now they're not getting 2% interest, but
Correct.
they're able to buy the new car. They're able to buy the new house. Yes, the bankruptcy's on your credit 7 years, but it doesn't interfere with your ability to buy stuff depending on what it is you want to buy, depending on how much you can put down.
And again, here's the thing, and you're right. The bankruptcy doesn't fix the behavior, and that's where I'll shamelessly plug myself. Where that's where I would say I can help, right? From a mindset standpoint, right? It's having a plan, having the budget, but then having the right mindset so that you're using this option to help you restructure or even give you a fresh start, right? But now we need to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in the situation where we're having to think about like, okay, here's more debt, here's more, we're having the same issues, the same problems in the next 5 to 7 years. And I think that for me, it's more of like, how do we restructure our minds so that we're not having to live beyond our means?
Right.
How do we use these tools to our benefit rather than having it be a detriment to our lives. And I think that's something that again I will shamelessly plug, but that's the coach in me.
Well, did you know every letter that goes out of Yesner Law when a client has been discharged in a bankruptcy says, "What do I do now?" And I
Right.
say, to avoid coming back and being a repeat client, call my friend George, who can
There you
help
go.
you with budgeting and with mindset and with
Hmm.
every letter that goes out following a discharge plugs my favorite financial
There
coach.
you go. I appreciate that. For me, I always say, to clients who are in that crisis, situation itself. Again, my job is not to push just bankruptcy or avoid it or oh shame on you. That my job is to kind of like here are all the options. They need to understand these options, and for me, you need to talk to Shawn. You need to have a conversation with your bankruptcy lawyer if you're outside of Florida, because again, I have the one man we trust here in
Yeah.
this fine state. But it is one of those kind of things. I think the more we always say, the more you know, the better position you're in to be able to make good decisions for yourself and your situation. And I think a lot of us, the easy thing to do is bury our heads and see what happens. And what we're saying is like, no, no, no. The more information you have, the better people you have in your corner to be able to provide you that guidance, that you can now make better decisions, or you can make more. What's it? I don't want to say better. You can make decisions that can help you in your situation, and I think that's where we want for you guys.
So the point that I wanted to make before about having the birthday party at Topgolf, I used AI to create
Yep.
the invitation. I
Nice.
I would not use AI for bankruptcy advice.
Hmm.
Or if I use AI for bankruptcy, well, I personally wouldn't use, but if a listener out there is putting stuff into AI to see if it's bankruptcy appropriate, you got to be aware there's a lot of different twists and turns and quirks in the bankruptcy law that AI may not yet have picked up on. For example, I've had this conversation in the last couple of weeks where I've said bankruptcy is a bad idea for you. So the bankruptcy code was amended. The last big amendment was in 2005. A lot of
Hmm.
bankruptcy practitioners will refer to it as BAPCPA. I don't like doing that. It's BAPCPA, the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act of
Sure.
2005. Basically, it was a huge overhaul of the bankruptcy code back in 2005. One of the things that it did was kind of the O.J. Simpson issue. In other words, before the implementation of the amendment, somebody could leave California, move to Florida, buy a house, pay for the house in cash, and now the house is exempt, file bankruptcy, eliminate their debt.
Sure.
When the bankruptcy code was amended and changed, what it said is you've got to live in the jurisdiction, call it 6 months. There's a little bit of quirks there, but
Yeah.
you've got to live in the jurisdiction for 6 months. So if I want to file in Florida, I got to be in Florida for 6 months. But I can only use Florida's exemptions, the unlimited homestead exemption, for example, if I've lived in Florida at least 2 years. If I haven't lived in Florida for 2 years, I got to go back to the state where I came from or look at the state where I came from, and I have to use that state's exemptions.
Wow.
So if
Okay.
I move from California to Florida and I haven't been in Florida yet 2 years and I file bankruptcy, I got to use California exemptions to see what assets I can protect. Now, the issue there is some states, like Florida, say, in order to use our exemptions, you have to live here. Well, if I'm in Florida, but I just came from California and I'm filing bankruptcy, and so I have to use California exemptions, if California says you got to live here to use our exemptions, now I can't use California
Ooh.
exemptions and I'm limited to the federal exemptions. One of the challenges is the federal
Yeesh.
exemptions and a lot of states in the country don't protect the homestead 100%. It's not an unlimited homestead exemption.
Yeah.
So even though Florida is, there was one woman in particular that I said, listen, if I file your bankruptcy, you're going to lose your house. And she said, but Florida has an unlimited exemption. I said, I get it, but you can't use, even though you're in Florida,
Yeah.
so the house is in Florida. The bankruptcy code says you cannot use Florida exemptions. And based on the state where I think she had moved here from like Virginia, I think.
Okay.
Don't
Okay.
quote me on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
It is a
Virginia,
fictional, it is a fictional
right,
scenario.
this fictional client. And I think Virginia said you can use our exemptions as long as you were
Sure.
a resident here. But Virginia or whatever other state it
Yeah.
was I'm
Whatever
thinking of
state, right, in question.
didn't have an unlimited homestead exemption.
Gotcha.
So by filing bankruptcy in Florida, this woman would have lost her homestead. I told her you can't file. Those are the types of quirks that I don't know that it's AI that doesn't know it, but it might be the borrower or the debtor, the person inquiring about bankruptcy doesn't know about these quirks to put
Yeah.
those prompts into AI to figure out the answer to those questions. So I think you always gain a little bit by talking to a real attorney if
Yeah. And
bankruptcy is something you're
I mean,
considering.
AI is going to get you thinking. That means somebody's doing the research, somebody's trying to understand, but what you're telling me is AI is not 100%? What?
No.
What? Shawn, that just
AI is about as reliable as girl math.
and we've lost listeners. Thanks, Shawn.
I gotta find
No,
a way. It should be a challenge to figure out how I'm gonna work girl math into every episode.
I will say I don't know if that's a good thing, but I will give you the challenge. If as long as it's funny, I think I'll allow for future episodes. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm gonna see what kind of a streak I can get here working girl math into every podcast episode.
We'll take listener suggestions to help Shawn with this as well in upcoming episodes. But I love it. Okay, but yeah, it's funny how once again the big thing around AI. For me, it's good to be able to get you thinking. The research is out there. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of information out there, but you can't. You have to talk to your lawyer. You have to have the conversation as part of your options to really understand. Like this is the best approach. Here's the next steps, and not put you in a position where is this right? And then all of a sudden you have a little bit of a oopsie or a reality check, I would say, when we start looking at your scenario and your case. So fascinating, my friend. Again, I would say, you know, bankruptcy is definitely an option if your current plan isn't working. If something is not feeling right, but you have to have a plan. You have to look at your debts, I would imagine, right? Like, and what does that future look like? Um, and be honest about it, not just, in theory or what AI is telling you, and then having that conversation to kind of see, is this the right option? You know?
Well, and I know my consultations are free. I know a lot
Yeah.
of my colleagues do free consultations. I know there are some bankruptcy attorneys out there who charge, and
Yeah.
I know it's ironic. Why would you charge somebody who's coming to you because they're having trouble
Always the
paying their
case.
bills? I get
Hmm.
it. But regardless of whether you pay for the consultation, whether you find somebody who can give you a free consultation, um, it doesn't, contacting me to say I want to file bankruptcy doesn't mean I push the button today and your bankruptcy is filed.
Yeah.
There's due diligence involved. I want to, make sure that I look at what assets and debts and liabilities. So it's, to get the information is no, and if you talk to me about filing a bankruptcy, one of the other things that people may or may not realize, everybody knows attorney-client privilege. What
Yeah.
most people don't realize is that attorney-client privilege applies whether you hire me as your attorney or not.
Oh,
So
so even if it's a free consult, that privilege still exists.
right. I
Okay.
can't go, hey, I had a consultation with George today, and here's what we talked because he didn't hire me. No, I could get disbarred for that. So
Gotcha. Good
so
to know as
attorney-client
well.
privilege applies whether you hire me or not.
Good to know as well, because that's another thing that, obviously, if I don't hire you, does that still apply? So, Shawn, that's another nice little tidbit that, for people to really, you don't have to worry. Again, try
Yep.
to eliminate that fear of the conversation from that standpoint. So, love it. Love it, my friend. Holy cow. Once again, I
Meanwhile,
feel like we do these episodes and I'm still learning something new every time. So, this is the brilliance that we call Mr. Yesner
yeah,
at Yesner Law. So, awesome job, buddy.
I'll keep you around another week.
We'll do this again. I think that's a great idea. But you've eliminated the shame when it comes to the legal process that's designed to help people. So I appreciate you doing that. But now I'm going to go and finance a jet ski at 22% because I think that
There you
makes
go.
sense at this point.
Enjoy. And then I'll bankrupt it and you can get out of it.
There you go.
Which is another myth, by the way. You can't bankrupt just one debt. It's all or
Just
nothing.
one?
It's
Okay,
all or
Mike.
nothing.
Gotcha. I was
All
gonna
or
was
nothing.
gonna
So
do the monitor I'm looking at right now, but I get it. Okay,
okay.
that's little things that we're learning as part of this as well. But
So
obviously we can poke fun, but we know it's a serious topic. But hey, life is interesting, and I would say you got two people here designed to help you crush debt, my friend. That's what we're do. That's what we're here for. But great episode, my friend. I love it. Thank
yep.
you so much.
So one other way that you can help us out is by going to the Patreon page, patreon.com/crushing debt. You can help us out by going there. You can also help us out by sharing this episode, listening to this episode, listening to some of our previous episodes are all available wherever you're listening to this show. You can find all the other older episodes. There may or may not be some nuggets in there,
Yeah, there's always.
but go back and check out the library. Um, as of now, I think, well, as of June 1, so June 1 of 2026. So if you're listening to this episode on the day of, you probably got a couple days left But if you're listening to this episode into June 2026 or beyond, the PanCan, the pancreatic cancer fundraiser page, will no longer accept any donations. But as soon as the 2027 walk gets up and running, I will repost the link for those
Start
of
again.
you. Or, I mean, if you do feel like reaching out, just let me know that you want to reach out and donate, and we can figure out a way to help you make that happen. Other than that, I think we are done with this week's episode.
I appreciate you as usual. Thank you so much for this. But yeah, we're ready for the summer, and we're ready for the day. Seize the
There you
day,
go.
people.
Today's the day. I got one client appointment, and then I got lunch, and then I'm done for the weekend.
Love it.
So,
Well, let's enjoy. Let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy it, and not worry about debts. But we'll do this again. I would imagine very soon.
yeah, I'm probably a week from now,
That sounds like a
if,
plan.
if I had to guess. So, with that, I will say we hope that you have more money at the end of the month rather than month at the end of the money. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.